right, so we're all set and good to go, I think. My co-host can let me know in the chat if there are any issues, but I just needed to clean that up real quick. Okay, so my name is Trish Jonker, and we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar as a part of Mental Health Awareness Month. I am one of the remote therapists with Meru Health, and today we're going to be talking about making changes that stick. So a little bit about myself. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Illinois. I'm actually in the suburbs of Chicago, where it's getting quite hot. We seem to have skipped over spring and jumped right into August, but I'm not complaining because in Chicago we do have our fair share of winter. But yeah, so I work for a program called Meru Health, and you are able to join us today as one of our partners. The Meru Health program is a 12-week treatment program for anyone struggling with kind of mild to moderate depression, anxiety, burnout, and stress. And we offer an app-based program that kind of coaches people through some life skills based in cognitive behavioral therapy that can kind of support some lifestyle changes that will help make improvements in those 4 areas. So that's how I spend most of my time, is providing some clinical coaching for our participants in those programs. And if you have any questions about the Meru Health program, you can check it out through your benefits package. But for today, I'm able to come to you and talk to you about the topic of making changes that stick. And as we're in the month of May and it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we are just going to talk today about some simple changes that you can make in your life that will help you move in a direction of wellness that you are really hoping to move towards. So we will move on. I'm not able to, and our website, of course, is meruhealth.com. For some reason, I'm not able to click through the slides right now. Oh, there we go. I clicked the wrong button. I'm a therapist, not an IT person. One of the quotes that I wanted to open up with today is from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And if you are not familiar with this book, it might be one that you would want to check out. But in this quote, he talks about being the designer of your world and not merely the consumer of it. And so with what we're going to talk about today is just taking some time, taking about 45 minutes just to press pause on your life and to actually be the designer of your world. And so much, you know, if you've got a busy life with kids and with work and with family members and people you love, maybe you're in a caregiving situation, we often just consume our life. It's just coming at us and we're just kind of receiving and reacting to it. And we have these great intentions, you know, January comes and we set these great intentions for the year and it doesn't always stick. And so what we're doing today is just taking a small section of time to actually talk about designing your world, actually planning it out. So we are going to first take a moment and think through kind of what is the goal that you have for your life. And coming into this, I'm going to assume that you have a change that's in the back of your mind that you want to make. You are looking to bring more wellness into your life. You're looking to improve your life in some way. And so if you were to narrow down that change that you're looking to make, let's just dive right in and get specific. What value does that change kind of revolve around? And so I've listed 5 different values here. And this actually comes from week 10 in the Meru Health program. We actually spend a whole week on this topic. But for right now, just kind of look through the changes that you want to make. And is there one category that you could say is the change that you're looking to make? And if you remember in your invitation, you were encouraged to bring something today that you could take notes with for yourself. And so I'd encourage you right now to grab a device, grab a pen and paper, and write down the change that you're wishing to make, and then what value that's going to fall under here. Okay. And so you can even throw up in the chat. Let's talk about, and let's see if there's any commonalities, if there's certain themes that are going on in terms of what is the value that you are wishing to build a goal around. And so feel free to throw it up in the chat if you want to. You can keep it private as well. I see we've got some people commenting, but let's kind of just, as we're working together today, as we're brainstorming today and dreaming a bit today, we're going to be a little bit interactive, and the chat is a great way for us to do that together. So with that change that you're imagining, I want us to actually take a minute and visualize it together. So if you're the kind of person who practices meditation or mindfulness, this is going to be comfortable for you. If that is not something that's a part of your regular practice, this might be new for you. And so what I want you to do is take a minute and find a comfortable position. Your cameras are off, nobody can see you. And so it's completely fine if you want to lay down on the ground or if you want to sit a little bit differently in the chair that you're in. But take a moment and find a comfortable position. I'd love it if some part of your body is touching the ground. So if your feet can be flat on the ground, that's helpful. If you want to kick off your shoes, that can be helpful. Notice just in your body, if there's any places where you're experiencing any tension, and maybe just kind of shake it out, just relax for a minute. If you are comfortable, I would encourage you to close your eyes for this practice. It's just going to be a couple of minutes long. If you're comfortable right now, just close your eyes and just begin slowing down your breath a little bit. It doesn't have to be deep breaths, but maybe depending what you're coming out of as you're entering into this webinar today, maybe there's a lot of stuff you've been thinking about. So I would encourage you just to take some slower breaths, relax your hands maybe on your lap. And when you're ready, start to visualize the change that we've kind of talked about. The change that you are imagining coming into this webinar, a change that you want to make in your life to pursue wellness. And I want you to visualize a scene in the future where you have accomplished this goal. So create kind of a scene, something in your imagination of where you want to go. As you continue with some slow breaths, I want you to look around this scene that you're creating and realize, where are you? Where does this scene in your future take place? If everything worked out and your change actually stuck, where are you and who are you with? Take again a few more slow breaths and look around and see who is with you in this future scene. Also, what are you doing? What's happening? What are people doing around you in this future scene? How is your life different? And now go a little bit deeper and just notice in the future, how do you feel when you've accomplished this goal and your change has actually worked? How does it feel in this future scene? And now, as you continue with some slow breaths, as you inhale slowly, I want you to imagine the peace that comes with this increased wellness and this change in your life. And as you exhale, exhale all the stress out that you're experiencing currently. And take a few more slow breaths, inhaling peace, exhaling stress. Take one last look around this scene that you've created. Pay attention to anything else you want to remember from it. something you want to work towards creating. Take a few more slow breaths, and then when you're ready, open your eyes and take a moment to write down, what did you notice? What things stood out to you? What is it that you want to create for yourself in the future? It might seem impossible, but this is just a dreaming part. This is the beginning of our exercise today. So write down some things that stood out to you, who you were with, where you were, how you felt, what you were doing, kind of the who, what, whens, and write that down. Just take notice of that for yourself. Getting back to those values, going a little bit deeper, I've written down some prompts here for you, some questions for you to think about when it comes to the goal that we're going to create for you today. And take a moment, either reflectively, or I would encourage you to journal this for a moment right now. Write down the answers to these questions. When you think about the goal that you're working towards, what are the answers to these questions? If you can do it right now, start to journal and write down the answers. If you're the kind of person that needs a bit more time to reflect, maybe just write down the questions and think of a time later on when you can address these questions yourself. A general question that I would love for all of you to think through right now is, what makes this goal important to you? What makes this goal important right now in this current season of your life? Essentially, what is your why? Why do you want to move towards this goal? And write those things down. So as we're in this dreaming and kind of creating phase of this exercise today, we're going to push pause for a minute for a note of caution. There's a wonderful leader and author speaker, Marcus Buckingham. You might be familiar with him. His quote, which I think is important at this stage of our practice today, is a note of caution. We can never achieve goals that envy sets for us. Looking at your friends, wishing you had what they had, is a waste of precious energy, because we are all unique, and what makes another happy may actually do the opposite for you. And that's why advice is nice, but often disappointing when heeded. So take a moment again to pause and think about the goal that you're working towards today, the one that we're going to refine and really develop today. Is it a goal set by envy? Something that you're looking at your friends and you're wishing you had what they had? Or is it based in a true why of something that you really want to pursue for yourself? And maybe just tweak it right now. Maybe you want to tweak the goal a little bit, so it's not so much based in envy, but it's really based in meeting your needs. Okay. So now we're going to start to get a little bit more specific. If you are familiar with the term SMART goals, it was originally created in 1981 by George Duran. It's an acronym that really helps you create goals. You may have done it at work. I really encourage you to not just use this type of thing at work, but also when you're creating goals for yourself, privately, personally, for your own wellness. And so we're going to break through this acronym and kind of look at your personal wellness goals and how they can be a little bit smarter, because we know that when we just set general goals, they're a little bit tougher to stick. They don't we don't follow through as well, but when they're smart, it's much easier to accomplish them. So the first letter in that acronym SMART is to be specific. And so again, we're going to be doing a lot of work today, so make sure you've got a pen and paper, your device is ready. I want you to look at the goal that you've created for yourself, the goal that you have visualized for your future, And now we're going to break it down into some specific actions. So if you want to accomplish this goal, we have to get specific. So what actions will you take? When will you take them? Where will you take them? Who's going to be involved? What's going to be involved? Take a minute and write down how you can make your goal a little bit more specific. What is it that you need to add, take away, and really flesh out in terms of this goal in order to make it be a little bit more specific for you? And this may be something, again, that you need to do later. But if there's anything you can write down right now that would help narrow down that goal, now's a good time to do it. Or just jot down, needs to be more specific. The next part of a SMART goal is to make it measurable. And so with your goal, how will you actually assess your progress and achievement? Now, with measurable goals, weight loss is the easiest one, right? Because you can actually assess your progress by saying, did I lose a pound this week? Yes or no. And at the end of X number of weeks, did I lose X number of pounds? But for other goals, it can be a little bit trickier to figure out how to make it measurable. So if you want to, for example, improve your relationship with your children, how do you measure that? Well, part of it is maybe being specific, because if you wanted to improve your relationship with your children, maybe you're going to go to the park every Saturday and play in the park, play on the playground equipment. And so you can set that up as a goal, and you could easily assess your progress, because if it's Saturday night, did you go to the park and did you play with your kids at the park? You'll be able to assess your progress. So is there something, especially when it's specific, it's going to be easier to make it measurable, but look at how you're going to be able to assess your progress and how will you know when you've achieved your goal, and write that down and figure out maybe some milestones along the way. If you can't do it now, again, just take a note, and this is something you can reflect on later as well. The next one is making your goal attainable. And again, earlier I encouraged you to dream, but now is the time where we're going to bring it down a little bit, because sometimes we set goals for ourselves that we actually just don't have the resources, at least in 2022, we don't have the resources to achieve. So take a look at your goal. Do you currently have the resources you need to reach your goal? And if not, is there something that you do need? So for example, if you want to start doing more walking or running, do you have the shoes that you would need to accomplish that goal? And if not, do you need to get those shoes before you start this journey, right? So looking at your goal, is it attainable with the resources that you currently have? Now, I'm not going to argue with George Duran, but I personally feel like attainable and realistic, the A and the R are kind of similar, just to be honest. But both are important to consider at this point in your goal setting process. Is your goal realistic? And so here we're looking at your current values and your current situation in life. So for example, your own personal health. Is what you're talking about doing something that you have the personal health capacity to move towards? Is your goal that you want to run a marathon, but you've actually never run a day in your life and you just had knee surgery? Maybe that's not a realistic goal for you, even though you went out and bought the shoes, right? So looking at your current time commitments, is the goal that you're looking at creating something that you have time to do right now? Or do you need to break it down a little bit? So instead of maybe running the marathon, maybe it's a time commitment issue and you've got 3 kids and you and your partner both work full time. So maybe the goal should be, I want to run 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week. And that's what I'm going to build up to, because I just don't have the time to train for a marathon right now. And then also just your financial status. Let's be really realistic. Can you afford a brand new pair of shoes? Can you afford the treadmill? Whatever it is. So looking at your goal, your pursuit of wellness, whatever category it fit under, is it attainable and realistic? And if not, it's not necessarily that you want to throw the goal out the window, but you might need to tweak it a little bit to make sure, because this is often an area where we end up falling apart, especially with our New Year's resolutions of I'm going to go to the gym. It ends up just, we don't have the time commitments. We're not able to do it. And so right now is a good time just to tweak the attainable and realistic side of things. And then finally, a SMART goal is timely. And so we want to set an accurate day or time limit. So there needs to be a finish line that you're working towards. So if you're saying, I want to practice mindfulness and meditation more often, you know, that again is quite vague. So you've broken it down. It's now specific, it's more measurable, it's attainable and realistic. By what day do you want to finish this goal? You want to be practicing mindfulness and meditation for X number of minutes per day, X number of days per week. And by this day, I'm going to accomplish that goal. Does that make sense? So write down right now, what is your personal finish line? When are you going to achieve this goal? Another great quote, and this is by Michael Hyatt, and he says that most people spend more time planning a 1-week vacation than they spend planning their life. And I think there's probably some smiles on some of your faces right now. I can't see your faces, but I think this is so true. We end up spending so much time researching flights and what day we're going to leave and what time, you know, are we going to go the early flight because it's cheaper, and what hotel. And we spend all this time planning 1-week vacations, but we don't sit down and actually plan our life. And so I want to commend you right now, because you are taking time out of your day to plan your life. And this, I would encourage you to become a regular practice, to take some of these strategies you're learning today, and maybe quarterly, maybe annually, you sit down, maybe you sit down with your partner and say, let's plan our life. Let's, as I said at the front end of this webinar, let's design our life, right? So we're going to continue to get specific and continue to hone things down. If you haven't already identified this, I want you to write down, again, this, you maybe need a second sheet of paper at this point, but who is going to help you achieve your goal? There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And so a lot of times why our changes don't stick is because we're trying it by ourselves. And when we can do things in community, one of the reasons I asked you to feel free to share things in the chat is when we do things in community, we tend to actually accomplish them. We go farther when we're working together with others. You don't need a huge Facebook group of 2,000 people to help you accomplish this goal, but you need at least one person who's going to know that you're working towards this. Maybe they'll join you in it and you can do it together, or maybe you just tell them about it and you ask them to hold you accountable and to check in with you on your progress. So write down the name of somebody who's going to help you achieve this goal, and then connect with them later on this week and ask them to be a part of this journey with you. The second part of looking at your plan is right away today, let's look at obstacles. So there's another great book that I would recommend called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. And he says that an important part of successful habit formation is trying something, and if it doesn't work right, revising it, and this is the key part, without getting discouraged or blaming yourself. Consider this to be a design process. So we are talking about, with this goal, we're talking about creating a new habit, right? You're going to create something new in your life. It's habit formation. And we all know you probably have tried to create this habit before and it didn't work right. So what we're doing right now is we're going to revise it. And I want you to prepare yourself that this is probably going to need to happen again, because something might get in the way of you accomplishing your goal. And we want to plan for that starting now. So in this revision season that's going to come, we want to make sure that you don't get discouraged and you don't blame yourself. We're going to expect it. We're going to normalize it. It's going to be a part of the process. So write down right now, if you could brainstorm, what are some obstacles that might get in the way of your goal? If you're planning to maybe run outside for 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week, it might rain, right? That's an easy one for me to come up with on the spot. But for you right now, when you think of your goal, what might get in the way of you accomplishing that goal between now and your finish line? What's going to get in the way? Are you going to get discouraged? Are you going to feel like it's not working? Is somebody going to make fun of you? Is somebody going to criticize you? Is work going to get busy and you might not have the time you thought? What might get in the way? Are you going on vacation? And how, starting now, can you plan for those obstacles so that you can roll with those obstacles? You've got a plan B in place. And then also just be aware that when those unexpected obstacles come that you couldn't have foreseen today, that you're not going to get discouraged and you're not going to blame yourself. You're just going to see yourself as being in a design process. You're going to roll with it. You're going to do another practice like this by yourself, and you're going to keep going. And then again, just being really specific, where are you going to work on this goal? And for some of you, it's kind of obvious, and this is a simple one for you to write down. For others of you, you're going to need to think, where is going to be the best place for me to create this new habit, to work on this goal, to do this certain activity? You know, if you're talking about career development and you're going to be taking a webinar or reading a book or something, working towards a new degree or certificate program, is there a place that you can dedicate an office, a corner, a nook, a table where you are going to work on this goal? And can you start to create that as your space? And when? So when, not just the finish line, but when between now and the finish line is going to be the time that you're going to work on your goal. Like I talked about in terms of developing a relationship with your kids and going to the park, it was Saturday afternoons was my example. So that is a very clear, you can put that, you know, in your calendar. You can make that a hard meeting that can't be interrupted or changed, and you can set that apart. When is going to be the best time? When you personally are going to be at your best, you're going to be the most motivated, you might be the most uninterrupted. When? And write that time down. And maybe it changes throughout the week, but start to think about that intentionally. Reminders. We are creating a new plan. We are creating a new habit. You are going to forget, right? A lot of times, this is why change doesn't stick, is because we simply forget to do it. So let's start today by planning out some reminders that you can put into place in your life that you will remember to do this new plan. So the first one is a tangible reminder. And for those of you who are my age or older, you may have heard stories of like tying a string on your finger or writing a note on your hand. Tangible things that you could touch and feel would remind us of certain things, right? So fast forward to today, I read a blog of a mom who was recognizing that she was being a little bit too negative with her kids, and she was too task oriented, and she was wanting to change her life so that she'd be more positive and encouraging of her children, but she kept forgetting to do it. So she bought 3 hair bands that were in her kids' favorite colors, and every morning she would put them on her right wrist. And then throughout the day, when she said something positive or encouraging to that child, she would take the corresponding colored hairband and move it to her left wrist. And then once all 3 bands were on her left hand, she knew she had been positive, encouraging to each one of her 3 children. She would take the hairbands off at the end of the day. That's a tangible reminder. Every day she could feel it, she could see it. It would remind her to say something positive and encouraging to her children. Another one that I've heard of is like, if you want to get out and go for a walk every day, maybe your goal is a 20-minute walk every day. In the morning, you put your walking shoes on and you wear them throughout the day, because physically you're going to feel those shoes on your feet, and you're not going to take those shoes off until you've gone for the walk. That's a tangible reminder. So is there something you can think of right now that would be a tangible reminder that would help you to follow through on your specific and unique goal? Maybe, maybe not. If not, there's visual reminders. There's things that you can put up around you visually that will remind you to follow through on this goal. So some of the old school ones are Post-it notes. And in the last few years, a lot of people have gotten into vision boards where they've literally hung up boards with images of the world they were trying to create for themselves. Think for yourself, is there an image? Is there a poster? Is there a picture that you could like get really nicely matted and framed that you would hang up in a prominent spot in your home? Is there, maybe you want to change the home screen on your phone to something that will remind you of what you visualized in that practice that we did a few minutes ago and the life that you want to create for yourself? Just jot down if there's anything that comes to mind of a visual. I'm a very visual person. This one really works for me. If you're a visual person, what images do you want to have around you that will remind you of your goal? And then the last one is the one that we probably use the most, which is those auditory reminders on our phone. Do you want to set up an auditory sound, an alarm, a ping, something auditory that's going to remind you, hey, it's time to follow through on your goal? You're not going to remember on your own. This is a brand new thing for you, not something to get discouraged about, but let's set you up to be successful by putting in some auditory reminders, alarms, sounds, whatever. You know you, and you know what works for you. And so figure out which of these is going to be a helpful reminder and set that up to start happening. So 2 books I've already mentioned, BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits, James Clear's Atomic Habits. They both reference this same strategy, but they have different names for it. So I want to give both of them credit. BJ Fogg calls it his ABC method, and James Clear calls it habit stacking. It, I think, is genius, but I want to give both of them credit. But basically, this method is that if it's possible, see if this would work for you, that when we're creating this new habit, we attach it to one that's already working for us. So, for example, this isn't true for everybody, but for many people, you don't need a reminder to brew coffee and drink coffee in the morning. That's a habit that you maybe have already been doing for many years, and you don't put Post-it notes up that say, you know, time to drink coffee. It's just something that when you wake up in the morning, you go to the kitchen, it's part of your routine, you brew the coffee, you drink the coffee, and that's already happening. And so that is what BJ Fogg would call the anchor behavior. You already have a habit, it's already in place, it's successful, you do it every day, it's ready to go. So think for a second, what are some things in your day that would be an anchor behavior, some habit that's already in place? Then what you do is you add this new wellness habit that we're talking about today, and you stick it to that anchor behavior. So this new behavior goes on to the anchor. So for example, if you wanted to practice mindfulness, you would say, I'm going to practice mindfulness every day while my coffee is brewing. So you're not going to forget the anchor behavior. And then, as James Clear would say, you stack this habit right next to it and you do it at the same time. And it makes it a little bit easier to remember when you do it that way. And then BJ Fogg, because he wanted to do ABC, tacked on celebration. And you congratulate yourself and you celebrate the fact that you remembered to do your behavior, your new habit that you're creating. So that might be something that works for you if you can figure out a habit that you could stack this new wellness habit on top of and see if you can get them flowing together. And finally, I want to talk about the final piece of setting yourself up for success, and that's your environment. So we want to talk about creating an environment that works for you. And the first piece of that is designing your home so it's easy to work on your goal. So for example, one of my goals about a year ago was I knew I needed to drink more water. I was not drinking enough water throughout the day. So I purchased this water cup for a couple of reasons. One, I thought it was pretty. It's my favorite color. It also, I started to figure out I drink more water when it's in a straw. Some people are different. For me, I liked a straw. And what I started doing was every morning I would fill it and I would put it on my desk. I designed my workspace so that it was really easy for me to drink water. Because if I have to go to the kitchen and find a clean glass and get it ready in the middle of my workday, it was less likely to happen. So I just started, my habit was to get this right here in the morning. And then throughout the day, I find I'm just drinking constantly and accomplishing my goal. So when you think of your particular goal, is there something that you can do in your home to change things around so it's more easy for you to accomplish it? One of the more common ones is, if you're trying to work on your nutrition, is to remove anything from your home that doesn't help you reach that goal, that junk food kind of stuff that you want to clear out, that you restock your kitchen with things that are more healthy. It might be that you choose to do food prep on Sunday nights, and maybe you choose to cut up the fruit and have it easily accessible. I know in our house with our kids, like, I would have fruit in the fridge, but if I actually went and chopped it up, got the strawberries and cut off the green tops and put it in a bowl on the counter, they'd be gone in a day. But if they were just in the container in the fridge, none of us would eat them. So what do you need to do that relates to your specific goal that you could set yourself up to be successful in your home, in your environment? If you want to accomplish your goal, one thing you might want to do is changing your language. And I've heard this a lot with people who are trying to quit smoking, is they will actually say, I am a non-smoker. Because the more you say that phrase, the more difficult it is to pick up a cigarette. Instead of saying, I'm going to try to run a 5K, you say, I am a runner. And some of this is internal dialogue, but some of this might also be how you are talking to people that you're interacting with, is changing your language so that you are talking about your goal in a way that supports what you're actually working towards. And then finally, choosing media that inspires you towards your goal. And by media, I'm talking about TV, I'm talking about movies, podcasts, books, music, radio stations, playlists. Think about the media that currently surrounds your life, what you choose to listen to in the car, what you choose to listen to in the morning. Does it relate to your goal, and does it inspire you towards your goal? And if not, is that a simple switch that you could make so that maybe you choose a podcast that's about people doing hard things, people accomplishing their goals? Or is there a podcast that actually talks about the life that you're trying to create for yourself? Maybe you want a playlist of songs that are inspiring and motivating and will get you. Maybe you listen to them when you're hesitating and hemming and hawing and procrastinating on what you should do to accomplish your goal. You've got a playlist ready to go that you click on that'll kind of motivate you and get you ready, that you listen to. Maybe if you're going to a certain location to work on your goal, maybe you've got a playlist or a podcast you listen to in the car that inspires you and gets you ready for that moment. So think about your environment. Think about little simple changes that you can make. Write them down, and then spend some time over the next few days creating an environment that's going to support success. All right. All right. So if anyone else wants to throw up in the chat, we would love to work on this together as a community. Have you got some good goals towards wellness? And how can you share those with us? We would love to see them. I am going to sign off in a minute, but I just wanted to thank you all for coming, and I hope this was helpful for you. You can feel free to log off when you're ready. We're going to wrap things up. And of course, like I said at the beginning, my name is Trish Jonker, and I'm one of the remote therapists with Meru Health. And I hope that you would also consider joining us and participating in one of our treatment programs. Thanks so much.